Look, I'm going to give it to you straight. The the Supreme Court seat is the only thing that matters to Mitch McConnell. Um, Quite frankly, he would rather have the Senate focus on the passage or on the uh, the giving of the Supreme Court seat to Amy Coney Barrett, as opposed to helping millions of not just Americans, like individual Americans, but rather than genuinely helping businesses. And yes, I know that he's proposing the extension of the PPP. A matter of fact, this past Tuesday, what we saw from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was we saw him essentially urging the White House to not strike a coronavirus relief bill with the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, before the election. And he literally flat out said that, look, if you pass this bill, if you make this happen before the election, you were going to derail my plans to confirm Amy Coney Barrett as the next Supreme Court justice, which he wants to do next week, early next week. So he's not disguising what his plan is. He is not kind of making you have to kind of guess what his moves. He's like very blatantly stating why he wants to do, what he wants to do. Now, the question of why he wants to do this isn't so hard to really guess at either. I've mentioned before that the Trump administration is at odds with what most Senate Republicans want. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that now. I'll probably talk about that a little bit later in this episode, but in this moment I'm not going to prolong this segment by doing that. But they are at odds, right? And quite frankly, while the Trump administration is fighting really hard for re-election, they're fighting really hard for another term. Uh, you have a lot of Senate Republicans who are not up for re-election, so they aren't as focused on this election cycle. They aren't as adamant about getting an actual stimulus package passed because, well, quite frankly, they don't need to worry about the ramifications in their mind of not helping the American people, because November 3rd to them is just going to be another day that, comes and goes, because they are not worried about re-election because they're not up for re-election. So that said, the president on the flip side understands that he needs to get a stimulus package passed because he is eminently impacted by either the passage or the failure of a passage for and of a stimulus package. So that said, Mitch McConnell, he's like, we've got to get this person on the Supreme Court justice, or excuse me, on the Supreme Court, because even if Trump loses re-election, we can have an impact from a conservative perspective by having a conservative justice on the court. They will essentially, what they're looking to do is they're looking to swing the ideology of the court, so to say, if the court, even though it's not supposed to really have an ideology. Point of it is, at this point, with Justice Ginsburg essentially dying, right? She was very liberal, very, very liberal. And by replacing her with the conservative, Republicans have an opportunity to swing the courts. Now, here's the deal. Why does this matter? This matters because as it currently stands, justices they have a lifelong, they have a job for life, right? And so while Congress people and presidents have terms, if they can swing the court in a conservative direction, it doesn't matter if they hold a job or not. It doesn't matter if President Trump keeps his job as president or not, because they secured that justice. Quite frankly, I am not certain that Mitch McConnell has faith, as most American, well, not most, but as some Americans don't when they look at the numbers, I'm not sure that they have faith that Trump is going to retain the presidency. That's why, quite frankly, you look and you see many Republicans actually starting to distance themselves from the president, because it's becoming clear that unless certain things that, I'm not going to say they can't happen, but certain things that are not likely to happen, unless those things happen, it is unlikely that Trump will retain the presidency. So, for this reason, Mitch McConnell has in his mind the idea that they need to focus on the long game. And the long game is focusing on getting a Supreme Court justice who is conservative in nature, and you do that by capitalizing on the opportunity that they have in the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, that said, Pelosi, she acknowledged that, I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before the last, I mentioned how Pelosi said, hey, look, we've got 48 hours to make it happen. This is make it or break it. But Pelosi, she's at this point where she has acknowledged, okay, that, not that 48 hours, she's not saying, well, that was kind of a pointless thing. What she's saying, though, is that unless we have legislation that is written by the end of this week, which is today. Today is the end of the week, right? Unless we get legislation that is written by the end of today, the chance of that legislation reaching President Trump's desk before Election Day, it's not going to happen. I have been saying time and time and time and time again for well over a month at this point. Look, I'm going to be very frank with you guys. Politicians understand that voters having hope works in their favor. Even if there really is no hope, as long as they can sell you on the idea of hope, they become more favorable in your eyes. That said, Nancy Pelosi is selling you on the idea of hope. We're not just looking at a situation where time is working against you. Listen to me. You have more than time that is working against you. You have an unwillingness from Senate Republicans who cannot be bypassed in this equation. There is no way to get stimulus without Senate Republicans on board. Anyone who tries to tell you otherwise does not understand how you take a bill and you make it a law. You need Senate Republicans because they hold the Senate. Unless you can convert some of them, not all of them, but unless you can convert some of them, which they have demonstrated time and time and time again, that conversion is not likely. Unless you can convert them, nothing is going to happen. So no matter if Nancy comes back today and she says, you know what, we've through some miracle we've got until next Monday, and by next Monday, if we can have a deal, we can have it before the election. Do you notice? As much as I have praised the attempts of Nancy Pelosi in these stimulus talks, do you notice? This is where I've got to call Nancy out. She constantly keeps moving the goalpost. That's not to say she's not making genuine efforts, but at this point, what you have to realize is that she is selling you on hope. Hope and change worked in 2008. Hope and change is not what is going to get Americans bills paid. Hope and change is not what's going to reopen the economy. We need more than hope and change. And yes, I appreciate what she is doing, and I appreciate the fact that she recognizes that we can't just take a bucket of water and throw it on a fire and say, oh, well, we've attempted to put the fire out by throwing water on it. She understands that we need a water hose. She understands that we need more, but she needs to be honest with the people. Be honest with the people, Nancy, and tell them, look, you need to plan your budgets, your household budgets, knowing that you were not going to receive a $1,200 check probably until February. And that is assuming that we can get some traction come the end of January, early February. And actually, even then, if they pass it in just say early February, you're not going to see a check until March or April. Be honest, Nancy, with the people. Quarter one of 2021 is down the drain for Americans. Be honest about it. So, all these people, specifically Nancy Pelosi, calling her out in this moment. This whole, oh, we've got 48 hours, we've got 24 hours. You're selling people on hope and change. Again, that was the name of the game for 2008. That we even saw it rolled out, when President Barack Obama was out there campaigning. What was it, in Pennsylvania? Something with the P. He was out there campaigning, and we saw reiterations of 2008 all over again. 2008, mind you, I was out there actively campaigning myself, for or advocating for the election of President Obama in 2008. I was all hope and change. I was sold on it back then. But I'm telling you, that cannot work. Literally, it can't with the American people. In 2020, doesn't work. You need a new strategy, Nancy. So be honest. Yes, she might have to catch some flack for it. She might have to assume some sort of blame. But I can tell you this, if Americans are honest about it, she does not have as much blame on her as, say, Mitch McConnell. So be honest. Hey, people, you're not going to see, even if we do, for one, get it out of your mind that we're going to see anything pass before the election day. Get it out of your mind. Really, your best hope, depending on who has the House, who has the Senate, and who is the president, your best hope of anything happening will be if it's passed in February. If it's passed in February, you will not see a check. And that's if they learn from their last experience. You won't see a check until March or April. So stop selling people a pipe dream. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. We have a lame duck session. And here's, you see some people mentioning this, but we've got a lame duck session as soon as November 3rd comes and goes. And as soon as we know who is going to be president or not be president, who's going to retain the House, who's not going to retain it, who's going to have the Senate, so on and so forth, we are going to have a lame duck session. Congress people who are not reelected, who were seeking reelection, are not going to be incentivized to do anything for you. Okay? Congress people who do retain their seats, but maybe just say they were Republicans who held the Senate, and if the Senate swings towards the House, do you think that they're going to be incentivized to do anything for you during the lame duck section? No. If anything, they are going to hold a grudge. If anything, history shows us they are not going to give 2 cents, to nothing about you American people. If Democrats end up with a situation where Republicans retain the Senate and President Trump retains the presidency, do you think that they're going to go as hard as they're going right now while they have things working in their favor, while they have things stacked against the Republicans that aren't necessarily stacked against them in the same way? Do you think they're going to go as hard for you during the lame duck session? No. Look, you all need to understand what is going on, okay? We are all being hoodwinked. And that hoodwinked we're being hoodwinked in the form of being sold hope and change. Ooh, tomorrow. Ooh, 48 hours. It's a lie. Don't believe it. Do not believe it. You are doing yourself a disservice. And especially, we hear about the emotional tolls that this time of COVID has had on people committing suicide and, alcoholism and drug use and all this stuff going up. As much as politicians talk about that, they also need to talk about the impact of them selling people pipe dreams, what that is, the impact that is having on people. People are emotionally tired of every other day thinking that their situations are going to get better. People are emotionally tired of wondering if they are going to be able to retain their health care. People are emotionally tired of wondering month in and month out. Nobody ever guessed that back in June, July, we would still be in this situation. In October. This is appalling, absolutely appalling. And American politicians need to get their stuff together, or they need to get the hell out of office.